Yes, that's right. Welcome back to another episode of Sporting Maxwell. Thanks to Bastion Group Recruitment for all your specialist needs of recruiting, engineering, and defence. Go to bastiongp.com. Joining me on the show today is the head coach for the Australian Matildas, Joe Montemurro. Joe, it's an absolute honour to have you on. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for having me on.
Joe, I want to get straight into it. Can you take us sort of all the way back to what a young Joe Montemurro was like growing up as a kid?
Oh God, long way back. I suppose like any obsessed young football player, just always had the ball at my feet. Growing up, in the lounge room, kicking balls around, smashing mum's vases, and all that sort of stuff. So I think anyone that's sort of bitten by the football bug is obsessed by it and always around it. But look, just a lot of the upbringing was really playing in the streets, in inner Melbourne with friends and so on. Always having five-a-side games or whatever we could. Played for the local club, which was Brunswick Juventus or Juventus, if anyone sort of knows it, the Italian
Mhm.
immigrant club of the time, and sort of worked my way through into the first team. Played limited amount of games. I wasn't that talented. We had a fantastic team at the time and had some great players coming through. So I had a little bit of a stint in the NSL, the old NSL. I
Mhm.
had an opportunity to go to Switzerland with Neuchâtel Xamax youth team, couple of first team games, and then played a little bit in Italy in the third and fourth divisions.
Mhm.
Not an amazing career. I was never good enough, to be honest, but it was a great opportunity, and I suppose that started the journey into coaching.
How'd you find, the transition from a playing perspective between, an Australian style of play, which you'd grown, I guess, so heavily adapted to, transferring over to Switzerland and Italy?
Yeah, probably. I was never a physical player. I was never the
Mhm.
stereotypical sort of Australian player. I was always quite happy to have the ball at my feet. It was probably my downfall because I didn't want to work hard enough in the defensive phase and so on and so on. So adapting to a more sort of technical and tactical sort of understanding was probably not as difficult. I wish I brought some of those Australian traits with me as a footballer, but was
Mhm.
never talented enough in that way. But look, I think any experience that you have in football and any understanding of different cultures and so on is an amazing learning process for you. So they were all great adventures, and then coming back to Australia was great. Also, I played in the lower leagues in the old VPL and
Mhm.
so on with local clubs. But I suppose when I came back from Europe, the coaching journey had already started. To be honest.
At what point did you realize you wanted to be a coach?
Yeah, there was never one real sort of aha moment.
Mhm.
It was always sort of part of it. I'd always look and study and question and understand and was always fascinated by the processes of coaches, and at the time it was probably a little bit different because we didn't have the formalities. We didn't have there were coaching courses, but they weren't really, they weren't really established. They weren't
Yeah.
part of being part of a professional environment. You needed the coaching accreditation. So it was I suppose something that was always in me, and look, by 28, 27, 28, when I'd come back from Europe, I'd already sort of started that process, and yeah, probably around that age where I started the formalization of coaching.
How do you sort of develop, your philosophies early on as a manager?
It's messy.
Mhm.
And I think it has to be messy because you're looking at all different ideas. You're looking at all different ways. You're starting to formulate your experiences, your beliefs, and what you think, or how you think the game should be played, and that's always evolving, and I could probably still say that I'm still evolving bits of it now at
Mhm.
my age, but I think it's a messy process, and it has to be a messy process because you discover all different areas of the game. You don't just look at those 90-95 minutes of football and the tactics and what you've done there. Then you start to look at the week, you start to look at leadership, you start to look at processes of sports sciences and the physical and medical part, the operational. So it then starts to grow, and you're discovering that as you go.
Mhm.
Um, Look, I was always, I suppose, one trait that I've always brought with me is I've always wanted my teams to dominate with the ball. So I've
Yeah.
always been a possession based um, idea of football. That obviously sometimes has to adapt, but I suppose that's always been part of who I am, and probably the way I was as a player.
I was talking to Tom Samani not too long ago around, tactical development and things like that. Was there a coach or a moment early on in, your life career that sort of shaped your, I guess, possession-based philosophy?
Oh, look, I mean, there was always, a lot of influences that you have, and not only football, even in leadership through corporate, through other
Hmm.
sports, and so on and so on. So I think it was more not particular person, it was particular ideas of people that always resonated with me. I obviously have taken to a lot of the earlier coaches, the earlier Dutch coaches,
Hmm.
in the 70s that played total football, and obviously observed a lot of the South American football, the Brazilian teams of the early 80s and mid 80s, and so on and so on. So they always influenced the shape of football that I wanted to play. But a lot of coaches, I was influenced by a lot of Italian coaches at the times, obviously the Arrigo Sacchis of the early 90s and all that sort of
Hmm.
stuff. So I wouldn't pinpoint one coaches because all of them have amazing value and ideas that you can take from them and help shape who you are.
So you started working early on with the, under 21 Melbourne Knights. How important is it in terms of, not only your coaching development, but for others out there as well, coaching these youth teams to, develop and, I guess, work on, different philosophies?
Yeah, I mean, the more experience you get, the more you start at levels that you think that are going to shape who you are, the better you are. I mean, I think nothing shapes a top coach than the experience of different ideas and different ways of doing things. And it started earlier than Melbourne Knights. It started with under 15, under 16 coaching at junior level. That's
Hmm.
was so important because you had to do everything. You had to
Yeah.
you had to pump up the balls. You had to clean the cones. You had to make sure the bibs were good. And all that sort of stuff shapes your destiny, shapes your journey, because you just understand what's needed to be done. But look, I think a lot of the experience that you have, and not just on the pitch, not just the 95 minutes. The relationships, the communication, the leadership, the organisation, the structure,
Mhm.
the detail are all part of the whole soup that is coaching.
Absolutely. Can you guide us through when you felt like you were ready to take on the reins as a head coach or senior in a senior manager position like you did at the Melbourne Victory early on?
I was never ready. I was never ready. I took the opportunity, and believed in my way of doing things. So my first senior gig was in the VPL with Sunshine George Cross. I think I
Yeah.
was 32, 33, something like that. I can't remember. And that was an amazing experience. I'd never been a senior coach before. I'd just mainly done youth football at South Melbourne, Melbourne Knights, Green Gully. Um, yeah, so I never thought I was ready. I just took the opportunity and was brave enough to try it. So and again, it's the only way you can learn by really extending yourself and finding those uncomfortable sort of scenarios where you think, okay, well, I've never done this before. I think I'm going to struggle with this, but let's see how we go. And you come out better for it, even if you're successful or non-successful.
How do you prepare yourself then for day one when you walk into Melbourne Victory at a professional level?
Um, Yeah, look, it's probably different for different organisations, but one of the main things is to create a football direction.
Hmm.
So the talk is football. The talk is about laying down the principles and the way we believe we're going to play.
Hmm.
And I think the important thing is to educate your group and to educate the players, staff, and everyone involved in looking through football through the same optics, through the same lens, and I think that's probably the first thing to say. Okay, well, these are the beliefs. This is what we believe are going to be the way we're going to be playing football this year. And I suppose the most important thing out of that is to say, okay, well, this is how we're going to do it. These are
Hmm.
the three or four, main values and ideas that we're going to implement to do that. And more importantly, to create the standards that we believe are going to push each other to be better and ascertain our goals through the week, but through the year. So for me, it's setting the standard. It's setting the standard and setting the ideas of the way we want to play, so that everyone's looking at everything through the same lens.
What are your non-negotiables then for, any day one program you walk into, whether that's, Juventus, Arsenal, or all the way back at South Melbourne, when you walk in on day one, what are your non-negotiables?
Um, Dishonesty.
Hmm.
Yeah, I want an honest group. I don't dishonesty, and I think a values-based process where we show a level of selflessness amongst each other, that we're here for each other. We do things not with the accolades of doing things, but doing things because they're the right things for us to be the best that we can be.
Hmm.
Um, so they're not football values. They're people values,
Hmm.
and that's really really important, and I think the other one is that everyone has a voice in my team. Everyone has an opportunity to be part of the team and contribute. But honesty is the biggest one for me. I want everyone to be honest with not just the group, but with themselves. With
Hmm.
themselves. Yeah.
When you do move to, the rivals in Melbourne City to take on the reins as their inaugural head coach, how do you set a culture and, when there's no real culture to speak of there?
Well, that was the beauty of it.
Hmm.
That challenge was the beauty of it, that we could start and set parameters that could be long term,
Yeah.
and that was really really important to me, to set some values, some standards, a way, an idea, a methodology of play that they could use as a base to be successful, to go forward. And it's great that already those base values of being, a professional outfit that sets high standards was really really important. So it was setting the values and the ideas of what a professional organisation would be, and there were non-negotiable standards of what
Hmm.
we needed. There were non-negotiable standards. I mean, you spoke about the non-negotiables. There were non-negotiable standards in what we needed as staff, what we needed as support, and what we needed as a base idea of going forward. So that was for me, from a personal perspective, one of my most rewarding roles that I've had in my career.
What do you remember most fondly about, that first year at City?
How quickly we adapted to the ideas, how
Yeah.
quickly we and that was all credit to the players, because a lot of them were yearning to be professional footballers. A lot of them were yearning for that okay, you come in the morning, you have breakfast, you do your pre-activation, you do your rehab, whatever you need, and then you're on the pitch, and then you have lunch, and then you do video, and so on and so on and so on. So I think, and especially the local players who hadn't felt that, who hadn't had that, were yearning for that.
Mhm.
And I have to praise them, the staff, for adapting so quickly to what a professional outfit was all about in this Australian sporting landscape. Uh, and that was the biggest thing for me. That was the biggest thing for me. And I think from a again from a personal perspective, the ability to adapt to a style of football that was close to my heart. We played a brand which was really really important.
Mhm.
That helped with the recruiting. That helped with the recruiting. We were able to recruit the profiles that could execute what we were trying to do. Um, so there was a lot of real ticks in that first year, which is good. But I repeat, we set the standard for what Melbourne City is today, and that's the most important thing.
Did winning your first major title feel like validation or relief?
But look, it's funny because winning trophies is the
Yeah.
result of the work. So I actually sort of um, how can I put it? I actually sort of am more interested in the process to win trophies than actual
Mhm.
winning the trophies, because the result of winning the trophies is the work you do,
Yeah.
is the levels that you ascertain, and the standards that you create for your culture. So I think I was more proud of the way we went about it, the way
Mhm.
we got to the final, and I suppose the trophy is the inevitable, or reaching the final, and being so dominant is inevitable of the work that you do.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of really good work at a lot of clubs, and not won the final, or not
Mhm.
won the thing, but that hasn't really bothered me, as long as we've created the processes to get to the final, knowing that they're going to be stable structures that we're going to be able to take with us for the rest of the journey going forward.
So you get the phone call from Arsenal to say, "Hey, we want you to be our manager." What are you sort of thinking or feeling at that point in time?
Oh, I suppose the imposter syndrome, and the geez, I don't think I'm good. I don't think I'm good enough for this. Um, but yeah, look, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I think it's well known that I'm a Gooner. I'm an Arsenal supporter, and followed them in my whole journey. And so for me to be part of an amazing organisation was incredible. But I go back to your earlier question. The
Mhm.
first thing I did was look at where they've come from, where they are now, look at the dynamics. And I found some ideas that my methodology, my way of doing things, that they needed. So the fit
Yeah.
the fit was perfect. It actually worked really really well. Are you sort of overawed as a fan, and so on, that first day that I walked into London Colney?
Mhm.
Yeah, look, it was quite amazing, but I had a job to do, and we did it in a really really important way.
Do your methodology change, at all heading over to Europe? Or do you just stick to your
Oh,
beliefs and processes and the system that you know of?
yeah, look, my processes are pretty solid. My
Mhm.
processes are pretty solid. Do you evolve? I think is the big word. Absolutely, you evolve. You
Yeah.
evolve to make it better. You evolve to
Mhm.
to make it adaptable for the organisation you're in. There's some clubs where you've got to really instill the methodology, and you've got to guide it, and you've got to coach it a lot more. There are others where you've got the profiles where you don't have to coach it a lot more. They get it quite easily. I think it's more about an evolution than an actual adaptation. It's more an evolution, and obviously with these ideas of understanding, where the level is, and again, it's really
Mhm.
just knowing your group and knowing your players.
So at Arsenal, there's suddenly expectation every week. How did that change you as a manager?
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love the pressure of every week having to perform every week. You know, 300 million Arsenal fans around the world, blogging that this coach should be sacked. What have we got getting an Australian? What's going on here? We're a big club, all that sort of stuff. So I love it. I love it. I thrive on that on that expectation, because you're at the highest level in the world. You're at the highest level, and that the only people you're competing yourself is against yourself. Because you're in a level of elite football that there is no better. And I love the high level discussions. I love the high level criticism. I love the high level pressure. I love the high level expectations every day.
So how do you handle moments and when philosophies are questioned publicly?
Yeah, look, you allow people to have their opinions, and you need to judge the opinion. But the thing that I know that they don't know is why we're doing it, why we're getting to this idea, why we're trying to instill certain ways of doing things, and I understand the process, so I feel comfortable with those insurance policies, knowing that we've put in the right processes, because we believe that these are the things we need to do. Does it not work at times? Absolutely. We're human beings. We make mistakes. Players do make mistakes. Coaches leave a substitution a little bit too long at times, or make the wrong substitution. We all make mistakes, but I think I've sort of experienced enough to be very solid in my beliefs, and why we do things. That's the most important thing. There's never a thing done just because we do it. Do we do sometimes things because there's a gut instinct to say, oh, I think this player's ready for this one, and I think this player's probably got 10, 15 minutes of impact? Yeah, we make those decisions, and I go back to that honesty. We're honest with ourselves, and I'm honest with the players. So everyone will criticize and have opinions, and that's the way of the world these days. I mean, you're younger than me, so you're exposed to it. You understand it better. I don't go much on social media, to be honest.
So guide through, you've mentioned your processes and things like that, and sort of rigid in terms of how you stick to that in guiding, teams and successful teams to a final or a championship to get them in that position to, have the opportunity to win. So can you take us inside, how you prepare a group then for, that pressurized moment when the pressure's, at its highest, how you stay calm and keep a calm head in those moments. So when the opportunity is there for the taking, they can go out there and execute.
Well, I think it's not just the moment of the final, the week of the final, the week of that big pressure game. It's what you do throughout the process, and the process starts, as I said, with a solid methodology and principles and game model that we believe is are the insurance policies, and we do that every day. So that's the first thing. So for me, by having that clarity, by having that throughout the season, you've already got 60-70% of how we want to play, who we are, and obviously those platforms will always get you through the game in a solid way. So there's a massive belief in who we are and what we do. So that's the first thing from that perspective. Obviously, you assess the opposition, and you assess understanding their strengths and their weaknesses, and where we believe our ideas can alleviate their weaknesses, and where we need to be aware of their strengths. So that's the biggest thing. But I think the main one is to just have the players informed on the expectations, have the players informed on what to believe. And pressure's a choice. Pressure's a choice. You can choose. You can choose to have all the external influences, affect the game. You can choose to focus on what you need to do well. You can choose on what we can focus on what we need to do well. So really, what we try to do is just focus in on our controllables. Focus on what we can control, and our methodology we can control, our principles we can control, our analysis of the strengths of the opposition we can control. They've got all that information. Now it's about choices, and to be in a position to make those right choices in that right moment is what football's all about. Because every game is different to each other. Every moment is different to each other.
Mhm.
Every pass is different to each other. So if we think that we can go on the training pitch and simulate every moment of the game, and
Mm.
say that this is going to happen in this moment, well, we're kidding ourselves. But
Mhm.
to have that familiarity and have that information in front of them, I think it informs them to make the better choice.
So you're someone who likes to, set up pressurized situations in training?
Our training is all based on high levels of intensity and having to make big decisions in moments.
Mhm.
So it's yeah, we'll simulate a moment. We'll simulate what we believe the opposition could do. It could be they're very good at crossing, so we'll work on some crossing and we'll create it in in moments that we believe are going to be familiar in the game. But again, one cross that we'll do at training is going to be different to a cross in a game, or
Yeah.
the approach, or the body shape, or the weight of the pass, or the
Mhm.
or the or the speed of the pass, or the so it's about familiarizing. But going back to the question, all our training is of a high level, a high intensity, where you've got to make a lot of decisions,
Mhm.
so that they're constantly making these high value decisions, high value actions, in moments of training. So the training is always very familiar to those traits.
Got us through. I mean, I want to read out a couple of stats. The 2018-19 Women's Super League season, you become the first WSL team to win 9 straight games, kicking 42 goals, conceding only 5. What do you put that offensive and defensive firepower sort of down to? Or is it just, back to system?
There was so much work done on ball retention, but not ball retention just to keep the ball. It was so much in the value of playing forward all the time. And
Yeah.
we took a lot of risks. We took a lot of risks in terms of numbers forward, um, and teams were struggling to understand what we were trying to do. And it was very principle based. It wasn't so much structural. It was very principle based,
Mhm.
and the players adapted to it so well. And you said a word rigidity before. There is a level of rigidity, no problems. There is a level of rigidity, but
Mhm.
you when you have talent, you need to be able to give it the space to create, the space to be instinctive.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna tell a Viv Miedemar that you have to be here in this moment, in this
Mhm.
situation all the time. I'll give her the guidelines, and
Yeah.
then she'll work out with her talent whether she takes a first touch and then nutmegs the defender coming forward,
Mhm.
or takes it away and starts the game again. I'm not going to tell her that, or Beth Mead, or
Mhm.
Daniel van der Donk. You need to leave that space where that player is empowered and has the autonomy to be the best that they can be.
So I want to go to the second last round of that WSL season against Brighton and Hove in front of, a record Women's Super League crowd. Did you know what you were about to achieve that day to take out the WSL title?
Well, I think we needed a point, or no, we needed 3 points in the last two games, I think it
Yeah.
was. And we had the opportunity. We were playing City, I think, who were third or second at the time in the last round. So
Mhm.
so I think there was an intention to bring it home and be and obviously be presented the trophy as champions at home. So we're playing away, and I think looked at. I vaguely remember that game. I don't think there was any doubt that we were going to come home with the points. There was such a positivity. There was such a belief that day that I think once the first one went in, I think Katie McCabe scored. If I can't remember, I think she scored the
Mhm.
first one. And then it was pretty much all done from there. But you have those moments and those weeks and those games where you just have so much belief that you know
Mhm.
that it's going to happen for you.
So you've spoken about, the processes and systems and beliefs that lead to the moment. What's the overriding emotions when, you do get to that moment? And is it more, a sigh of relief in terms of, okay, we've done it, or is it, just that overriding emotion of joy when you do win that title?
Yeah, I mean, similar to the question last time, I think you're really happy with the work that's done through the year.
Yeah.
We did some great work. Remember, I took over the year before, and we won the League Cup. We got to the final of the FA Cup.
Mhm.
We missed out. We narrowly missed out on. We narrowly, sorry. Oh, how do you do this? Um, you narrowly, sorry,
No, you're right.
you narrowly miss out on Champions League qualification. We came, I think, third, something like,
Mhm.
if I can remember. But it was a disaster in terms of what I inherited. There was poor structures, a lot of unhappy players. It wasn't in a good space.
Mhm.
So I think in the 2 years, in the two seasons, to start achieving in year one that I got there, and then to reach the ultimate scenario of where Arsenal should be in year two, I think was a testament to the work that we did, and I think that was the overriding sort of emotion to say, look what we've done. We've brought it from a mid-table team that was was
Mhm.
was in was in free fall, to now the top echelon, and I'm proud that they've stayed there. I'm proud that they've stayed there.
Mhm.
That's been the biggest thing for me, because a club of that nature and what it's done for women's football has been good. But yeah, all those amazing emotions, and to be honest, every opportunity that we do to win something, I'm probably thinking about the next. I'm probably
Yeah.
thinking about the next. I'm probably thinking, okay, well, we're in Champions League. We now start to need to work to that. We need to start a little bit earlier, a little bit of recruiting here, a little bit of that. So you start
Mhm.
sort of. We never switch off as coaches. We say we do,
Yeah.
but we don't. We don't switch off.
You click over very quickly.
Mm.
Which period in Europe challenged you the most as a coach and as a person?
Um, Yeah, I think there was a lot of emotion. I think the toughest period was to leave Arsenal. I had,
Mhm.
I think, 2 more years on my contract, or 3 years on my contract. I can't even remember. Was to make the decision to leave,
Mhm.
and for no external reason. I just felt the team at that point, and personally and internally, I felt I needed, to just refresh and reboot, and find another challenge.
Mhm.
Um, and I wanted to take time away from the game, because I was very exhausted. Coming
Mhm.
from the process of into the Melbourne victory to Melbourne City, then Arsenal. It was 8 or 9 years of just
Yeah.
real. I was tired. I was really, really fatigued, and that was challenging, because obviously difficult to leave Arsenal. You've won, and you're winning, and the team's doing
Mhm.
well, and you've got this super team and all that sort of stuff, and you think, shit, I'm leaving the team of my heart, team that, I know I could probably be here for the rest of my life if I wanted to, or all going well. And having to leave, and to find that challenge. And then I think to find the energy to look at to look at the next project. I think
Yeah.
that was really tough, because I wasn't exactly sure what that next project was going to be, and what I
Mhm.
wanted it to be. Obviously, always having that fundamental base of your values, and your methodology, and the way you want to play. I think I like to think that the way we play in my teams is very identifiable. That it is with the ball, and he's proactive with the ball.
Mhm.
So it was just finding that it was a lot of offers came through at the time, and I wasn't sure, and that was tough. That was tough, and then Juventus came,
Mhm.
and initially I wasn't sure. I didn't want to really take it, but Juventus, Arsenal and Juventus are my two clubs as a kid. So growing up
Mhm.
in the Italian family, and I like the project. I like the project. Growing in, it was Serie A was growing. Juve had a really solid project to get into Europe. They were dominant in the domestic league, but
Mhm.
they needed to get into Europe, and I found that as a really good challenge, especially with the format of Champions League changing into groups
Mhm.
and the qualification was different. I felt that it was something we could ascertain, but also something we could retain. We could stay there. So and Juventus was great. They were fantastic. I was really
Mhm.
happy with that decision. And it was a growing club, so there was
Mhm.
opportunities to really instill some ideas, and they've kept those ideas going forward. Yeah, and then the ultimate scenario of Lyon, which was
Mhm.
amazing. Which I thank the opportunity to be at probably one of the best clubs in the women's space. They were fantastic, but also to be considered for that job, I think was a real honor for me,
Mhm.
and we won the league there, and semi-final Champions League, and had a great time there. And in all honesty, didn't want to leave. I had a 2-year contract above the
Mhm.
one, and wanted to stay there. And so they're all challenges. But the biggest one was leaving Arsenal. That was tough. That was tough.
So, so you win the treble in Juventus, and then you go and win in Lyon as well. What's the appointment process then like for the Matildas?
Wow. Look, there were discussions. There were discussions, and
Mhm.
but but it was something that I'll be honest with you, wasn't considering because I was happy. I was really loving the football at Lyon, and we were. And it was also another project because the squad was being reshaped. That it was an elderly squad. It was an old
Mhm.
squad at Lyon, and we had to recruit quite heavily. I think there was 11 players coming out of contract in June.
Wow.
And a lot of the recruitment we did while I was there, which was fantastic. And now they've gone on to the next stage. So I was looking forward to that. I was looking forward to the next
Yeah.
phase of building this mega team. It was already a mega team, but building this amazing team that would be successful and go forward for the next few years. And I had it was one of those ones where obviously the Matildas close to my heart, close
Mhm.
to who I am in terms of my growth of here in Australia as an Australian coach, and what I what the game has given to me. I felt, and I sort of started to look at it, and I assessed the where it was
Mhm.
at the moment, where the national team was at the moment. Obviously, the tournament's coming up. A home Asian Cup, which will probably never happen in my career again.
Yeah.
The possibility of a World Cup in Brazil. The mecca of world football,
Mhm.
and then the possibility of an LA Games. But the biggest one was the opportunity to contribute to the game here in Australia, and sort of steady it back to achieve its what it can in terms
Mhm.
of in the space. I think the Matildas have been wonderful in terms of what they've achieved and overachieved in the landscape. Because we're not a football country. We,
Mhm.
to use the classic terminology of we punch above our weight.
Yeah.
I think what has been done historically and what we're trying to achieve now has been important. But there is a point where we probably now have to start thinking over the next 10 years of where that team's heading. The
Mhm.
other one was what the Matildas mean to that next generation, and what it means to those next girls and boys who want to get involved in the game. And I think they're a real important role model for that. So I felt I was entering into a space where I could give back to the game.
Yeah.
And that was probably the biggest thing for me. That was the biggest thing for me that then I started to say, okay, well, this is probably a moment in a career where disappointingly I had to leave, a dream club job,
Mhm.
um, to take on probably an opportunity that was once in a lifetime with a national team that I feel that I could make some sort of a contribution.
What did this team need most when you took over? I spoke to Tom Samani when he walked in as interim about just reinstilling that confidence after an unsuccessful Paris Games in 2024. What do you feel this team needed most off at the back of that?
Yeah, I concur with Tommy. I think stability. I think it
Yeah.
needed to have a bit of a direction. It needed just some stable direction on where it was going. I think it needed a bit of honesty. I think
Hmm.
it needed a bit of honesty of where it's at. Not to talk about the past. The past
Yeah.
is the past. That happens. To talk about where it's at and where we believe we can go forward. So I've just been in a process of stabilizing. I've been in a process of just instilling a depth chart of where our talent is around the country and around the world, and where it should be sort of developing and ranked. So
Hmm.
we've just stabilized processes. That's all we've done, and probably just bring in a little bit of belief, because I think they lost a little bit of belief in who
Hmm.
they are, and not only the football part, but who they are as human beings and as athletes and as role models.
Yeah.
I think that's been a really important process in doing that, and obviously football.
Hmm.
Focusing everything back on football, because that has to be the centerpiece of everything. Our football performance has to be the centerpiece of everything. Because as we discussed before, there are so many factors of expectation, of criticism, of opinion, of other things that are not football related, and I think they probably lost their way a little bit with that. So the focus on football
Hmm.
has been the number one priority.
How do you develop relationships then with world class players like Sam Kerr, Steph Catley, Caitlin Ford when you really only have a limited time with them in each camp?
Oh, look, I mean, you start the conversation on them and their direction and where they believe they are, not just football, but as human beings, as
Hmm.
we're trying to bring them along the journey, which helps them to make decisions in life and in football. And again, I think we always go back to the same scenarios. Understanding the human being, but also creating the standards when they do come in, because we get them
Hmm.
for a limited time. So I don't have any time to I suppose have an easy push in having a bit of fun or whatever it is. We have to hit the ground running, and I think all professional players want high standards. All professional players want a level that they know that they're getting something out of the session and out of being together. So we don't waste any time. We just get on with
Hmm.
things, and just analyze and assess how we can be better. And I think that just forms natural standards of appreciation and communication of working with high performers.
Joe, before I let you go, what does the year in preparation for heading into a World Cup in 2027 look like?
Yeah, important games. We've done a calendar going forward to play
Hmm.
against all the top teams. And I hope there are some negative areas that we can work towards. It's not going to be easy, but we need to also prepare for the best. We have to prepare for scenarios that are going to be very, very difficult in the biggest tournament in the world.
Hmm.
So if we don't put reality into the teams that we play against, and that honesty of going forward, and of where we're at, then we'll never be able to familiarize the expectations of what's there, but also to make sure that we continue to believe in our values and the way we want to play, and try to instill them even if games are difficult. Try to still continue to do what we believe is going to be high performance to get the results that we need.
Absolutely, Joe. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute honour to have you on. Best luck with the World Cup next year.
All the best, Max, and thanks for your time.
Thanks so much, Joe. Stay tuned for some more Sporting Max. We'll see you soon.